The private jet hangar was shining with lights. Expensive cars lined up outside. Rich businessmen in polished suits walked proudly, their shoes clicking against the marble floor. The air smelled of jet fuel, and everything looked glamorous and untouchable. Then the unexpected happened. A man walked in. His clothes were old, his straw hat torn and his shoes covered in mud. He looked like a farmer who had lost his way. The crowd turned to stare. First there was silence, then whispers started. "Who is he? Why is he here?" In seconds, the whispers turned into laughter. Some pointed at him, mocking loudly. "Maybe he came to sweep the floors," one joked. The laughter grew, echoing in the hangar, but the man didn't speak. He simply stood there, calm and silent. His eyes scanned the shiny jets, almost as if he belonged. Nobody knew his story, nobody cared. They only saw his clothes. But behind that simple look was a secret that would shock them all. Before we move forward, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? And don't forget to like and subscribe to Black and Wronged for more heart-touching stories. Let's get started. The laughter inside the hangar grew louder. Expensive watches sparkled on the wrists of executives as they pointed at the farmer. "Look at him," one man smirked. "Maybe he came here to deliver milk." Another chuckled. "He must be lost. Farmers don't belong near private jets." Even the cleaning staff giggled, hiding their mouths behind their hands. The guard stepped forward, ready to push the farmer out. "Sir, you can't be here," one of them said sharply. But the farmer did not move. His face showed no fear, no shame. He just stood there, calm like still water. The crowd grew restless. The more they mocked him, the more peaceful he looked. This silence made some uneasy. Why was he not embarrassed? Why didn't he defend himself or walk away? It felt strange, almost as if he was waiting for something. Samuel Carter, the ambitious young manager, folded his arms and smirked. "Let's see how long this old man lasts here," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. Nobody knew that very soon. The laughter would stop, and their pride would turn into shock. The farmer's eyes dropped to the floor, but not from shame. His calm face carried years of storms, struggles, and patience that these rich men could never understand. He did not fight back. He did not shout. He just stood quietly, his old leather bag hanging from his shoulder, his straw hat bent out of shape. Some of the executives grew bolder. "Why are you even standing here?" One whispered loudly enough for him to hear. "This is no place for men from the fields." The group chuckled again, feeling powerful in their suits and shiny shoes. But the farmer's silence felt heavy. It was not weakness. It was strength, the kind of strength that comes from a lifetime of hard work, from waking before sunrise, from surviving harsh summers and endless rains. And then, in that silence, footsteps echoed from the far side of the hangar. A tall man in a dark navy suit appeared, flanked by two assistants. His voice carried authority as he called out, words that would change everything. The man in the navy suit walked with confidence. The crowd quickly straightened their backs, their laughter fading into silence. This was the airport director. Everyone respected him. His eyes scanned the group, then stopped on the farmer. With a warm smile, he said, "Mr. Walker, your jet is ready. The pilots are waiting. Would you like us to arrange refreshments before your flight?" The words hit the room like thunder. The executives froze. The smirks disappeared. Shoes that had clicked proudly against the floor now felt heavy with shame. Samuel Carter's arms dropped to his sides, his face pale. He realized the old man he mocked wasn't lost at all. He was the owner of the very jet they were admiring. Whispers rippled through the group. "Mr. Walker?" Someone gasped. "He owns the jet?" The women in uniform lowered their eyes, their fake smiles turning into awe. But James Walker, the humble farmer, didn't boast. He simply nodded politely to the director and walked forward, passing the stunned group without a single word. Still, his silence spoke louder than any insult could. As James Walker stepped toward the jet, memories from his long journey filled his mind. He had not always been this powerful. For most of his 70 years, life was nothing but hardship. He remembered when his wife stitched his torn shirts late at night, when his children walked to school barefoot because shoes were too costly, when neighbors mocked him for buying barren land that no one else wanted. Back then, he was invisible to the world. Bank clerks laughed at his clothes. Traders sneered when he came to markets with his crops. People called him a fool, a poor farmer who would never rise above the dust. But James never gave up. Slowly, patiently, he worked the dead lands with his bare hands, turning them into fields of gold. One small farm became two, two became 10, and soon his farmlands stretched further than anyone could imagine. The very people who had mocked him now depended on his harvests. His crops fed families, filled markets, and even traveled overseas. Yet despite all this, he never changed. And now, standing by his own jet, his quiet dignity shamed the crowd more than any words ever could. The hangar was still. No one dared to laugh anymore. The executives who once mocked him now stood frozen, their pride shrinking. Samuel Carter, the ambitious manager, felt his throat tighten. Just minutes ago, he had called James an old man who didn't belong here. Now the truth stood in front of him like a mirror, exposing his arrogance. James Walker did not look back at them. He had no need to prove himself. His silence was enough. It was the same silence he had carried when bankers mocked his patched clothes, when traders dismissed his harvest, when neighbors ridiculed him for chasing dreams. That silence had protected him all his life. One of the attendants whispered, "He owns the jet. He owns everything." Their words spread like fire through the group. Awe replaced mockery. Respect replaced arrogance. James placed his hand gently on the rail of the jet's staircase. The crowd expected him to turn, to lecture them, to throw their insults back at them. But he didn't. Instead, he lifted his head and took the first step upward, leaving behind not just the crowd, but also decades of judgment. Inside the jet, James Walker settled near the window as the engines began to hum. But his thoughts were far from luxury. His mind drifted back to the long years behind him. He remembered the burning summers when his skin cracked under the sun. He remembered the heavy rains that destroyed crops, leaving him with nothing but debt. He remembered selling his first harvest so cheaply that he nearly gave up farming forever. Yet every failure taught him patience. Every insult made him stronger. His wife's tired hands stitching clothes late at night. His children smiling. Despite walking barefoot to school, these were the images that gave him strength. When others mocked him for buying barren land, he saw hope where they saw waste. Slowly, he turned hopeless soil into green fields. Those lands, once rejected, grew into farms that fed thousands. His wealth was not born overnight. It came from sacrifice, sweat, and unshakable faith. As the jet rolled forward, James closed his eyes for a moment. The roar of the engine reminded him of something important. His journey was never about money. It was about dignity. And soon the world below would learn that too. The jet lifted off the ground, leaving the silent crowd far behind. James Walker gazed out of the window, watching the shrinking figures of the very people who had mocked him only moments ago. Their laughter had vanished, replaced by shame. But James was not thinking about revenge. His heart carried no bitterness. He whispered a quiet prayer, not for riches, not for power, not even for owning fleets of aircraft, but for the strength to remain the same, humble farmer he had always been. To him, true wealth was never measured in gold watches or expensive suits. His joy came from hearing the rustle of crops in the wind, from giving food to the hungry, from funding schools in villages where children had no hope. That was his fortune, the wealth of kindness, humility, and giving. Below, the hangar stood silent, but inside the jet, James felt peace. The world may have judged him by his clothes, but his character told a different story, and that story was far richer than any amount of money could ever be. High above the clouds, James Walker rested his head against the window. The world below looked small, just like the pride of the people who had mocked him moments earlier. He knew one truth very clearly. Clothes may fool the eyes, but they never reveal the heart. His fortune had never changed who he was. Every morning he still walked the fields. He still gave food to the hungry. He still funded schools so that no child would go barefoot like his once did. His wealth was not the jet, not the lands, not even the power he carried. His true wealth was kindness, humility, and the dignity of hard work. The lesson was simple but eternal. Never judge someone by appearances. True richness lies in character, not in fabric or gold. As the jet soared higher, James closed his eyes in peace, knowing he had lived not for praise but for purpose. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Black and Wronged for more stories that remind us of the power of kindness and the strength of humility. Your support helps us spread these lessons across the world.